All right, everyone, and welcome back. So today we're going to be taking a look at the prehistory time period. We're going to be starting our discussion on this. This is going to be all the times before the written records were kept. So here's the standards we'll be taking a look at this time around. So you can go ahead and you can take a look there, as well as you can pause and take a look at the vocabulary that we will be looking at through this subject. All right. Now we're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty of it. So fossils. These are the preserved remains of animals, plants, things like that that tell us a little bit about the past. They are buried and preserved inside of rock. Basically, it leaves an outline of what things looked like by the bones, and it shows us, it helps us get an idea of what things looked like in the past, whether it's a plant or an animal, because we can find in these fossils things that no longer exist today because they went extinct, such as like giant dragonflies, uh, long-necked fish, whale creatures, plants that we just don't have anymore because perhaps our the ecosystem for the air and everything doesn't support it, that particular type of plant anymore. uh, Ancient peoples, so like the skeleton you see down in the bottom right corner, that's a fossil. All right. Artifacts are different from fossils because these are man-made objects, such as a tool or a piece of pottery, jewelry. Things like that are artifacts, things that we made and have survived. And why is that important? Because they give us clues about the evolution of technology as we progressed to the modern day civilizations that we have. Now, the oldest known artifacts that have been found so far date back approximately 3 million years. All right. And these would be old stone tools that were found. So more than likely it was like a stone hammer that had been shaped and molded by chipping away at it to make it fit the hand more ergonomically for using for, like, I don't know, scraping animal hide to help turn it into leather to make clothing, perhaps, be something along those lines. All right, archaeologists. These are the people who study fossils and artifacts to tell the story of the past. Now, I studied anthropology. I took a number of archaeology classes. This is some really interesting stuff because they tell us a story that perhaps maybe we did not know, right? They're always finding new things out there in the world. We're always learning more information about the past that helps define how we got to where we are now, okay? Now, radiocarbon dating is a tool that scientists like archaeologists use for dating fossils. Now, all living organisms absorb radiocarbon. It's just one of those forces in the world that our bodies absorb. And radiocarbon decay, so like when an object dies or like a person dies, that carbon starts to decay. And we can measure it. And we can roughly tell about how long ago that thing, whatever it is, a plant or animal, a person, when they existed, when they lived. And the way that that basically happens is, you find a bone, you clean it up, you take a small sample of it, you grind it down into small powdery pieces, you continue to treat it to try and purify it a little bit more. You are then going to basically add a chemical to it. It's going to be processed in a machine. The computer is going to analyze the readings that it takes off of this solution, and you can get a window of approximately when this organic tissue was alive. For more recent things, say I find a bone buried in a grave on, I don't know, my grandpa's farm, and I take it, It gets dug up, it gets tested, and I find out that the skeleton is from a Native American who lived in the area between 300 and 400 years ago. Okay, pretty cool. That is during early colonial times in Virginia. But say I'm over in Europe somewhere and I find, let's say it's another skeleton that has other tools around it that suggest that it's at the very least from the medieval period. Okay, so think a good, 900 years ago, and we do the test, and then the skeleton, we get a window that that this thing existed between 1,000 and 1,200 years ago, which actually makes it a little older than I would have initially thought. So that's kind of how this works. Now, there are also other ways to try and figure out how dating it can be done. We have relative dating like stratigraphy, which is basically looking at the layers of dirt that are in a dig site. So the deeper the layers, the older the objects that should be in those layers. Then, of course, there is absolute dating, how we absolutely can know when something, how old something is. So counting the rings in a tree, radiocarbon dating, all these different tests right here. Now, the stratigraphy one, where you have the layers, this is an example of the layers. So each of these layers you can trace back to a different time period by different objects that are found in there. You can tell by, the Roman walls. We know how the Romans built walls, so you can tell by the engineering that this is a Roman style wall versus a medieval wall, which is built differently using bigger stones, more robust, versus a wall that was built in the 1800s where you have more of a brick, like solid squared brick pattern. All right. And of course, then there's things that kind of mess it up where you have like trash pits that can put medieval objects down into Roman stuff. So you gotta try and decipher what's from what period. So it's not the best way to try and figure out the date of something. Now, let's get into the prehistory itself a little bit more. This is the time before written records, so before history was written down, because there was no written language. Now, this question here that I pose, how are written records related to our knowledge of world history? This is because written records tell us what happened. It's as simple as that. Prehistory, it's more of a guessing game because nothing was written down, so we have to give our best scientific guess as to what things were like. Now, the evolution of humans is going to take us to Africa, to the area of Tanzania in Eastern Africa. We call this place the cradle of humanity because we have found fossils of human type creatures that are ranging from 2.5 million to 32,000 years old. So the earliest humans, scientists believe, came from this area in Africa. And what that one is, the oldest one that's been found, is Australopithecus. So this is a ape-like and human kind of hybrid type of deal. This ape-like creature that has a lot of human characteristics. And it was found in the Pliocene layer of Earth. And it's dated between 4 and 1 million years ago in that Tanzanian area in Africa. It was discovered by the archaeologist Louis Leakey, and the skeleton was nicknamed Lucy. All right. So this is the skeleton here that you see on the left, and this is what we believe she may have looked like when she was alive. You can see some human-like characteristics like the eyebrows, the eyes, some of the jaw features, but still very ape-like, but some human characteristics that we can relate to. Now, hominids. These are human-like creatures. An animal that has a large brain and walks upright on two legs. All right. So other creatures that are in the hominid family, we have humans, of course. Then we have the great apes, like the gorilla, the orangutan, the chimpanzee, and the bonozo. The chimpanzee and bonozo are very similar to each other in looks and appearances, but they are different. Now, moving further into this, we have the Homo habilis, which is one of those early humanoid beings that would use tools, and they lived between 2.5 and 1.6 million years ago. Then there is Homo erectus, which is upright man walking on 2 feet, and we believe that this was the first human type creature to leave Africa between 2 and 1 million years ago. Then we have Homo neanderthalis. This is like the Neanderthals, between 250,000 and 30,000 years ago. Them and us, like modern humans, did exist at roughly the same time. So there actually was some interaction between these two humanid type beings. Because Homo sapiens, that's us. And roughly the same time as the Neanderthals, 250,000 years ago to the present, is the time period. And the definition of Homo sapien is the intelligent man. We are the superior hominid group. Now, the spread of Homo sapiens is going to occur basically between 100,000 and 400,000 years ago. We're going to leave Africa. We're going to spread into Europe and into Asia, eventually crossing from Asia to places like Australia and into the North America, South America areas. These early humans were hunter-gatherers who basically would follow animal herds and hunt them, and they would pick plant food as they were able to find it. They basically followed the food. They had small family groups, and they just did what they had to do to survive, following the food. And this map right here basically shows the migration pattern that we see of those first early human migrations spreading out of Africa. Of course, from the Tanzanian area, we're going to see people moving south and north in Africa itself, but crossing into Asia right here through the Middle East, and then spreading up into Europe, as well as throughout all of Asia, going down into Australia, because this is like during like the Ice Age period where the sea levels were lower. So you could walk from Asia down to Australia. You could walk from Asia into North America. This was the land bridge, as it's known, and people just walked in. All right, that is where we're going to leave off today. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Come back next time.